are an educator working hard to grow and inspire students. But when it's time to track and report your professional development, it's frustrating. Outdated systems, scattered data, and too much time wasted. This was the challenge at McMaster University's MI faced. They offer great programs, workshops for educators, but struggle to track and manage it all effectively. That's where we came in. Together, we created a modern solution using Microsoft 365 Power Platform. It makes tracking professional development easy, clear, and efficient. Today, we'll show you how we turned their challenges into a tool that empowers educators, help institutions grow. So let's get started. Before we get started, I wanted to take a moment to introduce your host for today, Creospark. We are a team of Canada and US-based Microsoft 365 implementation experts, passionate about helping our clients achieve their ideal employee experience. We create and support great employee experience with Microsoft 365 Digital Workspace, and our headquarters are based in Davis, California, and Toronto, Canada. We have three main solution areas. Modern work. The purpose is to make sure organization can work from anywhere on any devices exactly the way they want. On process transformation is to help organization of any sizes to go digital at their own pace, transferring some repetitive tasks to AI. On secure cloud, well, we aim to securing the cloud. We take identity and device management seriously and make sure your team is well known for today's environment. Our focus is on leveraging Microsoft technologies, including Microsoft 365, Power Platform, and Azure for this, delivering this for our clients. All right, for housekeeping, before we start, please introduce yourself in the chat, share the organization you represent, where you live, and what you hope to learn today. Also, feel free to add any questions on the Q&A panel during the webinar session. Handouts and certificate of attendance will be sent out to your email today after today's session, and you'll also receive a recording and a recap blog next week too. All right, so here's what we will cover today. First, we will talk about the vision behind this initiative and how it came to life. And then we'll look at the key challenges that MI faced with tracking and reporting. We'll also show you how our digital solution, the platform solution, solves this problem. And finally, we'll give you a live demo walkthrough of this platform and some key features. So I want to introduce your speakers for the day. Nuno, Managed Service Practice Lead and Senior Architect for this project. Steve, Strategic Communication and Marketing Manager. Lori, Director of McMaster University's MacPherson Institute. Stage is all yours, guys.
Hi, everyone. I'm Nuno. I'll tell you a little bit myself first. I've been in IT for about 20-something years. So I'm a little aging myself, if you guys can't tell. My hair, tells a lot of stories too. So I've been working with Lori and Steve for the past year or so on this solution, probably closer to 2 over time with all the different parts and getting to know them. So we invited them to talk about their experience of building a custom solution. And I'll let Lori and Steve introduce themselves.
Hi, everyone. So excited to be here and share with you some of what we've been through over the last year and a half with Creospark. My name is Lori Goff. I'm serving as the director of a unit at McMaster that's considered a teaching and learning center. It's named after a donor. So our donor is Paul R. MacPherson, and we're the Institute for Leadership, Innovation, and Excellence in Teaching. It is a huge mouthful. And so as you heard Prem talking earlier, earlier, we tend to shorten it to the acronym MI, or the MacPherson Institute. So one unit at the university. We deliver lots of professional development and training in teaching for the McMaster community as a central unit supporting the entire campus in that venture and that function. I'm joined here with me today by Steve. So Steve, I'll turn it over to you and you can do a bit of an introduction yourself as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Lori. I'm Steve Sears. I'm the manager of strategic communications and marketing at the MacPherson Institute. Like Lori said, we support our educators here on campus, also sometimes beyond campus. So we do some events and programming that reach even beyond kind of our little community here. My role, I oversee a team of our program and events coordinators, as well as a communication specialist. We do a lot of work sort of supporting the programming and that professional development activity that we do here at the MacPherson Institute. And we do a lot of communicating and promoting of the types of stuff that we do here at the Institute. So my role in this project, I've worked really closely with Lori to sort of unpack some of the tracking and registration challenges that we've had that we'll talk about in a little bit, and have also worked very closely with Nuno over the last couple of years to kind of sort through this problem and really try to find a solution that's going to help us in our work and sharing back with the community here at McMaster about what we do. So thanks for being here, everyone.
That's great. So now we're going to just take a couple quick polls just to get to know you guys a little bit better. You should see a poll pop up anytime on your screen. The first one will be, how big is your organization? Just so we can understand the audience. Well, that's great. See that most of the people are in organizations of 1 to 100, so small to medium size. We got a few very large organizations here, so that's great. And then the second one is, what is your biggest challenge when you face while implementing a custom solution? And so I see most of the people are kind of in two areas. Oh, it's starting to change a little bit, but lack of technical expertise is very common why people reach out to Creospark. And then integrating with existing systems, we excel at that stuff. So it's great to see that's kind of some of the issues people are facing. Yeah, and everybody always has budget and time constraints with everything, so it's very common. Feel free to enter anybody who entered other. Feel free to put it in the chat what other issues you face.
Yeah, I'm so interested in what the others are. And we have faced all of these ourselves at the MacPherson Institute as well. So we'll talk about, I think, a lot of them, but to a large part, the lack of technical expertise that we have as well. That's great. User acceptance. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, we'll definitely be talking about that, lack of acceptance when we talk about change management and those kind of things. Perfect. So maybe we could start, Lori or Steve, you could decide who would want to talk. Maybe it's Lori because you lead the team there. Talk about McMaster and the MacPherson Institute and what is your mandate? I know you've told us a little bit about what you do, but maybe give a little more detail.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Okay, so I mentioned that we're from the MacPherson Institute. So we're one central unit on campus at McMaster University. We're a huge organization. So for those of you who are joining from a large organization, we have some learnings that we've learned along the way in terms of how to navigate all the different units that contribute to the work in which we do as well and how we interface with all of them. The MacPherson Institute, like I said, is a unit that's considered a teaching and learning center. We have a mandate to help support the teaching development across campus. So not everybody that we hire at McMaster University are experts in teaching. Many are experts in research, in their disciplinary research. And so part of the reason we exist as a unit at McMaster is to help support the development of teaching skills and teaching expertise. We also help to support the ways in which academic programs are constructed and reviewed, and quality assurance of kind of whole programs. We help to support some research on teaching as well. So there's a number of different things that we're mandated in. We've got a fairly big unit at the MacPherson Institute of about 30 to 35 individuals who are all providing various consultations, various programming, various events, various ways in which we deliver on our mandate to help support the development of teaching in different capacities. Some of that is related to learning different technologies to embed in your teaching. Some of it is how to create courses online in our learning management system, and some of it, some of the more traditional ways of teaching as well. So a lot of different people at our unit who help to support the development of teaching in many different ways. And we all have historically tracked how we engage with faculty members or others who are involved in teaching in different ways, in different places, and in different kind of methods, different frequency, and all of that. And so it became, I guess, even the pandemic, when the pandemic hit and we had became Microsoft users as well at McMaster, it opened up new ways of storing information and saving information in different places, and just created more, I would say, a bit of chaos in terms of where all of our information was stored. And so that became part of our challenge, is really how do we find all of the data, registration information that people have engaged in our supports and services with? How do we report back on that in consistent ways if we're not collecting it very consistently in the first place and we didn't have a database to put some of this information into? It made it really impossible for me as a director to answer questions to my senior leaders at the university around questions like, well, what proportion or what percentage of faculty members do you reach at McMaster? How many people do you actually engage with over the course of a year? It made it really difficult for us to respond to questions from any one individual who came to us and asked questions like, I'm going for an award, or I'm trying to put together a package for promotion or tenure or something like that at the university. And I'm trying to remember all of the things that I've done with the MacPherson Institute and beyond to help support the development of my teaching for a case in their portfolio. And because we tracked things so inconsistently, it was really impossible for us to be able to answer some of those questions. It was also really difficult for us to answer some questions around which of our programs and supports have the best uptake, which are the ones we should continue to offer, and to make some internal decisions around some of that. So we tried to solve this challenge and looked for a number of different out of the box kind of solutions, vendor solutions and stuff like that, but none of them really fit our context and that. And so we went down a couple of different paths for a couple of years, actually trying to find the right solution. And then at one point, our deputy chief technology officer here at McMaster said, what about a custom solution? Have you thought about that? And that's how we ended up getting connected in the end with Creospark to try to build out a custom solution for what we needed that best integrated with our existing systems on campus that we at the MacPherson Institute don't fully control. So we don't control all the licensing for Microsoft products. We have a unit that does that, the unit University Technology Services that does that. So we have to find ways to work with them to try to build out custom solutions as well. What am I missing, Steve? Where do you want to add to that kind of background that I'm sharing?
I think you nailed it. The main thing is we've been trying to solve this for quite a while and have come up with a patchwork of solutions that were imperfect at best. But yeah, I think you've captured all of it.
So I will say, because I see this coming up in the polls as well, we have a lack of technical expertise in the MacPherson Institute. So we have a few people at the MacPherson Institute who have some database expertise, but the bulk of our staff don't have a lot of technical expertise. They're trainers, they're developers on the education side, not the technical. We certainly had budget constraints. We have time constraints, although our time we've been dealing with this challenge for a long time. We also needed to think about how to integrate our solution with other existing systems, and so had a lot of conversations with that up front. And in terms of the others that have popped up too, there's some challenges with user acceptance and change management that we've been going through in terms of building out our solution. And we've not had as much challenge with lack of support from decision makers. We've had some really good relationships and rapport with building out some of that, which has enabled some of the success that we've had with our project.
That's great. Since you mentioned, one of your big issues was dealing with, data all over the place. Which caused we went down a little bit of a rabbit hole to try to understand what is your main issue was you had to report quickly and you had a very hard time. We went down the path of trying to figure out what was your real business issue. And that's when we discovered your biggest issues. You already kind of knew, but we kind of went down the path of trying to understand why. And what was the reason? And it was because everybody kind of put data everywhere. Can you maybe tell us a little bit why you think people were doing that? Was it because it was easier for them? Was it because there was no standard that you guys did? It was just a process thing?
Yeah, I think probably that was just the way it was always done historically, and we hadn't ever really come to understand what the implications of that would be. It got exacerbated by the pandemic and access to a lot of the different ways of recording once we started getting involved in using Teams and Microsoft 365 and that. So we started putting together spreadsheets, which we all have access to and enough skills to be able to use, but even the spreadsheets were challenging and they didn't all record the same information. They didn't have a unique identifier. We didn't really understand that we needed that kind of thing to be able to link some of the data together and that. And so it was through our exploration of trying to build out a solution that we started to understand the way we were doing it historically wasn't all that modern. And not enabling us to move forward into the future to be able to answer some of the questions that we were getting and be able to make some good decisions about the programming that we offered.
Yeah, I know a part for me, one of the things that I tried to discover was trying to figure out what were your budget scope and what was your needs when we kind of started this. We went through a discovery type project at the beginning just to try to understand that. And with that, we kind of came up with a roadmap to fit your budget and your scope, and timelines to meet your needs the best. Could you tell us a little bit how you think that process went?
Yeah, so what can I say? So we have a unit on campus that's responsible for a lot of our procurement and helping to create another unit on campus that helps to create business requirements and that. And so we've had to work with a number of different units on campus at McMaster to try to come up with a solution that would work both from a financial perspective and a timeline perspective. One of the things that I can say, I think, like we had been connected with Creospark after a number of different quotes that we ended up getting, and we need to do that through our procurement processes and that to be able to meet our broader public sector procurement responsibilities. Creospark was fabulous, I would say. And Nuno, not to put you on the spot, Nuno, but you in particular in helping us to understand all of the pieces that we need to consider and to plan out, I guess, a timeline and a plan and a number of individuals who we needed to collaborate with and consult with to make this project successful. I wouldn't have necessarily known all of that from the beginning. And I think Nuno asked a lot of the right questions for us to be able to build that out. As an example for that, I would say, especially as it related to our IT governance, data, I guess, data governance, privacy, security, and that sort of thing. I was just like, okay, let's build an app and it'll all work fine. But there's a lot of other considerations in the background around privacy, around data security and that. And so Nuno asked a lot of good questions from the beginning, which then prompted me to say, okay, we need to pull in the right people at McMaster to have these conversations, because I don't have the technical expertise to understand if you're going to try to integrate something, or if you're going to try to pull data from one source, where some of those points might be that we would have to take into consideration. There's a big question that came up early on from our another unit on campus, our University Technology Services, around the licensing implications as well. And so they really wanted to make sure that we were building out a solution where we understood what the license implications were. And of course, we didn't know. I didn't know, and Steve didn't know. But Nuno knew what kinds of questions to ask, and knew the types of positions and people at the university to have those conversations right from the very beginning, so that the solution that was designed took into consideration all of these potential concerns that could have crept up along the way.
Yeah, I found that part of the process when we brought that in, we getting UTS involved, asking the questions to them to make sure we met their goals of licensing. We had the discussion about we ended up picking a Power Platform with Dataverse, but we had the discussion of using SharePoint as a database. We had the Dataverse for Teams because it was free and included, but there's some limitations there. But based around your overall future goals, there was a decision to go with Dataverse, because eventually one of the phases or future projects is to build the self-service portal, right? So we kind of broke out the project into 3 types of mini projects, which was your database and application, the Power BI reporting phase, because that's really solves your end solution. And then a future, which was a portal for people to go and get their own information in the future, right? So what part of that do you think helped McMaster, the MacPherson Institute and McMaster as a whole in getting this project approved?
Yeah. So I don't know about the rest of you that are on the call, but I came into this thinking, oh, it'll be easy to create a solution to this, without really knowing all of the implications and the technical integrations and things that would need to be considered. So Nuno helped us identify that right from the very beginning, and helped us identify that the biggest thing we were missing, that kind of everything else hinged upon, was a functional database and a way to get information into the database in user-friendly ways. And so as Nuno was saying, our priority project, through this collaborative conversation and kind of exploration, we figured that was the first project that we needed to solve first, is get that database up and running. That's the part that I think we'll demo for you shortly, because that's the part of the project that has been completed, and we're now starting to use that part of the project. Once the information's in the database, then we're trying to figure out ways to pull it out, and so we're also integrating other projects now with Creospark that are connecting to Power BI. And that. But as we concluded that first project around the database and the app that was built to get information into the database and see some of the data and interface with some of that, we ended up having to go through at the university some data security and privacy checks at the end of the process. And we learned through that process that all of the due diligence and all of the conversations that we had right at the start streamlined that final approvals and those final endorsements with our UTS folks and our information security services people. And so they were phenomenally impressed, I think, with how well we utilized already kind of licensed products that McMaster had through Microsoft using Power Apps and Power BI as well at this point, and had pre-considered a lot of the information security concerns, so that when we got to the end, there were actually like no issues that stopped or delayed the process, which was great.
That's good. And Steve, from your perspective, did you kind of see anything that you might have that might have helped you from your part? Because I know you kind of do a different role within the MacPherson Institute than Lori. You're probably more hands-on. How did you feel about that process?
Yeah, like I think one of the main things that we learned as we went through this process, I mean, going back to the poll, like we definitely don't have the technical expertise. So we sort of knew that we didn't know that part of it. So Creospark was very helpful in kind of helping us almost upskill ourselves to start understanding the lingo and like how things were connected and the impact that things would have downstream. So I think what we learned pretty early on is that we're also thinking through like not just the app and how the app is going to function, but like the impact and the change to our own processes. So with everyone tracking their own stuff in their own ways, in their own spaces, how does that now translate to the actual kind of change management part of this project, where it's now that we've got this app where we're going to be putting all of the data, what kind of impact does that have to you guys? And that's kind of where we're at in the project now, is kind of working with our staff to sort out like, what is it that you're tracking? How do we now change the way that you're tracking to a certain degree to make sure that there's like clean data going into the system, so that the reporting data we're pulling out of the system is going to be helpful and not be sort of like missing or erroneous data and not giving us the types of information that we want. So I think it's kind of that dual thing to think about as you're starting on this kind of journey, is like you've got the app or the solution that's being built, but there are implications to the business and how your staff will actually now connect with the types of stuff they've been doing in the past in a different way.
Yeah, I remember we talked about that a lot early on about this project. While it feels like it's a technical thing, it becomes more of a change management, really a change management issue, right? Because you might be able to solve the problem by just making everybody put the data in a consistent way, right? So we built a solution to do that, but the change management part, if that part doesn't happen, the solution's not going to be successful. How are you finding that process, since you kind of started talking about, how are you finding that process and the feedback you're getting from your team? I know we got a lot of people involved early on, getting their feedback during requirements and during testing. How are you getting that feedback that we've incorporated and got a bigger stakeholder group involved so that they feel like they've been part of the process?
Yeah, so I definitely would say that there's like a bit of a balance, right? So I think what we sort of landed on was we had a core group that was meeting with Creospark pretty regularly to work through the app itself, but there were certain points in time where we would expand that group to people that might be impacted by some of the work that's happening. So we had sort of a spectrum of people that we connected with who deal with data in different ways and in different roles to sort of understand like how they would use the app and what the impact might be. Kind of gathered some of that feedback and then brought it back so that we could then sort of update or make revisions to the app. And now we're sort of at the end of that, where the app has now been launched and it's in production and we're ready to kind of actually start using it. So I'm kind of at a next phase now of that change management, where I'm going to be starting to meet with all of those individual groups and now actually looking at some of the data. So we're trying to put in data from the previous year as a bit of a test to kind of make sure that things are working out and we can use that to inform how we're reporting. But I mean, so far, I think the uptake is, we're selling it to people as this is meant to create efficiency. It's meant to help us all in the long run and prevent things like urgent last minute like scrambles to find numbers on something, or constant barrages of requests for like, we need some updated information about this or that. Like if it's all in the system and we all sort of align under this idea that, we just use the system on a regular basis, then the data's all in there. The people that need that data can just go in and pull it themselves. They don't need to bug people every time something new comes up. So I think that's how we're trying to frame it for folks, is that yes, there's a bit of a learning curve, and it will take some time to understand like how to use it and like what it's, what parts of it are creating efficiency. There might be certain parts where there's like extra steps, like you're not just putting it in your own spreadsheet now, like you might have to do a couple extra things, but there's a long-term vision for like how it will support and improve the overall process. So I think it's a process for sure.
Yeah, I from the conversations we had early on, I believe the reports you guys do at the end of the school year, which is May or so, you guys kind of spend a month gathering all that data, right? Just because everybody puts it everywhere, right? So yeah, it's a little bit of work now, but I think in April, they'll see April, May, when you go to do that report and you don't have to ask them to go for all that, to collect all that data. I think that's where they'll start to see some of the benefits to them. Right now, it's a little bit of a pain just because they got to go back and enter data, learn the process and everything. But hopefully, when you start to pull the data for the first year's worth of data, your first big reports that you guys spend a lot of time on, it makes their lives easier. Perfect. I know one of the things that we one of the goals was to eventually integrate into different systems. Because of budget and scope, and we made decisions around integration that we were gonna do some manual integration versus automated at this point. For example, I believe we take the data from the Mosaic system, but it's downloaded and we upload it into the system. Because of that data is only once a year. How did you find that compromise on your budget and timeline, respective budget timelines and functionality?
Yeah, I guess what I could say there is, with someone who doesn't have a lot of technical understanding or expertise in particular areas, you take for granted what some of the costs are associated with some of these integrations. And so, Nuno, you helped us understand if we wanted like live data pulls essentially from what you called Mosaic. So for others, that's like our ERP. It's based on PeopleSoft. But to be able to pull data live from that system would have been a much bigger integration and much more costly, where we really only needed that information pulled basically once per year, maybe 3 times per year. So we could manage that pretty manually for now. And so that's the direction that we went in, so we could manage our costs a little bit better. And that with that, is that what you were getting at in terms of that question?
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, I just wanted to understand how you guys felt, because I know automated, everybody wants everything automated, right?
Right.
But sometimes, is it really it doesn't meet your need, is not only on the technical solution, but also on your budget and time frame, right? So
exactly.
We could have delayed the project longer, might have made it harder to get approvals for a budget, everything else, by making it an automated solution piece of it. Now, it's in scope for future needs as you guys start to build it and build other integrations, but it did. I believe at this point it wasn't required. So I think that's what I was trying to pull out was, did that balance help you?
Yeah, I think trying to understand the budgetary implications of it so we could make informed decisions around what was most important to us was really helpful at the start. And based on those conversations that we had, you were able to build out our solution that best met our needs, essentially, right? And kept the costs manageable and that as well. I think the same kind of conversation happened around licensing as well. So being able to think about what are the licensing implications of the solution and how are we going to manage those ongoing costs. So a lot of that came into consideration early on, so that we could build out a solution that met our needs and was affordable, essentially.
That's great. I know early on you talked about you guys kind of tried a bunch of looked at different possible solutions. Maybe you could talk about the types of different solutions you looked at to try to solve your main problem.
Yeah, I mean, we can chat about that. Some of it was like other kind of case management systems that were out there. Some of them were other registration systems that are used in education sectors. But I think because of the work in which we do at the MacPherson Institute, and we have like a number of different mandates and a number of different types of work that we do, none of them really fit. And so no matter what solution we were able to find that existed out there, it never met all of our needs. And then we also, because we're a pretty complex institution as well, trying to integrate some of those out of the box type solutions with our existing solutions or existing systems on campus has been challenging in the past and time consuming and costly. And so the solution of trying to build something with the products essentially that we already have at McMaster, which is the Microsoft suite of tools, was a really attractive solution because we didn't have to try to like make something fit. What's the phrase like that? Fit a square peg in a round hole kind of thing. We could customize it with the things in which we had access to through our existing license agreement that we had.
Perfect. We kind of talked a lot about early on about your requirements, and we discussed, you had a big laundry list of you wanted, right? We kind of, went through that, and at the beginning, all of them was must-haves. When we kind of,
oh yeah, way back then when we thought we needed like the world, right?
Yeah. So,
yeah.
I kind of took you guys through a little exercise that we kind of laid them all out and kind of tried to figure out, what's your must-haves, nice-to-haves, and future needs, right?
Yeah.
And I did that more just to kind of understand what you really needed right now and to help you build an overall architecture, but also kind of help with figuring out how do we break this down into manageable projects for you, right? To figure out the scope. How did you find that that process?
Yeah. I like thinking back to it now, I remember we wanted everything for right? Like we wanted it to do everything. I think you helped us help to identify the things that were most essential and then to bucket it out into the products, projects, sorry. It's kind of those three main projects. So yeah, I think, I mean, in the end, did we get absolutely everything that we had imagined? No. Did we get the things that were essential for success? I think so. I mean, we're in the middle of implementing the three projects. The first one is complete. We're moving on to developing the second one, and the third one right now is on hold until we finish the second one. But maybe a demo might help, Nuno. I know there's a question in the chat just saying, is there going to be a demo? But we've been talking a lot about what we're building. Do you want to maybe move on to that, the demo, so people can see kind of what it is you've helped build for us?
Definitely. I will share my screen.
Yes.
Perfect. So this is it's the main application. It's so just so everyone knows, it's fake data. It's in my test environment. We built the system with two personas, really to focus on the administrators, people that are setting up the systems, the courses, the programs in the background, and then the people that are facilitating them or do consultations with people. And that, when we talked about, that was very important to you guys. We wanted people to be able to go in quickly. So we kind of broke it out, but based on personas. So this main screen was the administration persona. This was designed by our UX expert on our team, Kunal, with the feedback of Lori, Steve, and the rest of the MacPherson Institute team that was involved. And this is kind of your activities. You go into an activity, you can see, you can set up different pieces, what's about the activity types. We can configure which activity types are in the system. You can also look at schedules and set up multiple schedules. This allows for, one activity that you run multiple times. Say you have a webinar that you run every month. You can set them up and you have a different schedule. And then from here, you can see who's your facilitators, who's your what's called attendees, who's registered to it, and you get all that detail, right? So you went to the schedule, you can see all the details about the schedule and its attendees, and we could do attendance if we needed to. We could upload that information from another system. So sometimes Lori's team will use a third-party system for webinars, and they could upload the attendees into here so that it makes it easier. There's no need to retype everything. So they could just download it, put it into a template spreadsheet, and upload it to make it easy of use. Instead of trying to automate all the different possible systems that they might work with, we built a simplified process for them. We also have a way. Go ahead, Steve.
Sorry, I was just going to contextualize that piece a little bit too for people in terms of the change management process. Like where we've got the schedules and the attendees, that's like one of the biggest changes I think for our team here, is that because everyone was tracking things differently, in some cases they were just tracking the number of activities that happened. In other cases, they were tracking just the number of people that attended. So in the system now, we're sort of transitioning into this sort of plan forward where we're actually capturing consistent data. So names, email addresses, like kind of an employee marker, department, faculty, that kind of thing, so that we've got consistent data that's going into the system so that we can then pull out of the system all of that kind of reporting based on all the different activities we're doing, whether it's a different activity type, or, for us, we do a couple of conferences a year, we do workshops, we do, awards and grants and things like that. So everyone kind of capturing that same consistent data going into the system allows us to see that on the reporting side in a way that's helpful from a data analysis perspective. So that's one of the big kind of change management pieces that we're dealing with right now.
Yeah, that's where I think people are going to eventually see the benefit. That right now it's getting used to that process for them.
Yep.
Right. So this is just a screen for all the facilitators in the organization. Most of the people will be a part of the MacPherson Institute, but there might be some third parties. So the system allows for external people to be facilitators, and we can look at the details for them. When you go into an individual, a facilitator could also be an attendee. So we allow them to, because they might attend a different event or program. So we allow them to see that information also and manage it. And you can see all the activities a person attended and what they facilitated if they have. From the attendee screen, looks very similar. So I happen to pick somebody that has both, is a facilitator also, so you see both stuff. If they were just an attendee, we wouldn't have this tab here. And then the settings. This is just a way to configure different activity types, right? So you got consultations here. We have different stuff. On the production system, we'll have webinars. Consultations, they will have conferences, things like that. The faculty list, this is just a list of all the different faculties at the McMaster, and then under there we also have departments, right? So this is fake data, but you get to see the concept. There's a hierarchical list of stuff so that we could tie this back to individuals and be able to report based on those people, because individuals will have this data. This reach list is where the data comes from the ERP system. And this has a list for each year. So we could eventually do year-over-year reporting for different information. So we keep a historical list of that data. And this is where they would upload it and manage it. And this is, if we went to go look at it, this is the data, very simplified data that comes from a third-party system. So. And then topics is really a feature to put extra, tagging on different events or schedules and stuff that you MacPherson sets up. So that's kind of the administrator persona. In here, there's two different levels of users. There's the administrators and superadmins. Superadmins will be able to delete some stuff, and they also will have access to this reach list, because some of the data in here is confidential. So we made sure that certain data is hidden to individuals that don't need to see that data, which was very important to Lori's team and the UTS for them, right? Because they're very being a public entity, being a university, people's information is very important, especially at the, students. You might have some minors in there, if they're going to school at 18, you never know. They can get into university. You want to protect people's information. So we want to make sure this kind of information is secure as best as possible. And then on the facilitator side, it kind of gives you, as a facilitator, anything I'm facilitating. It'll give me a list. I don't have anything today, and we have filter capabilities. And anything I facilitated in the past. And if I facilitated something, I could go upload list of registrants, or I could come in here and just say if they were absent, late, excused, present. You can mark their attendance here. So, and then if you want the filter, if there was a big list, we have a full filter. All our sections have filters, look very similar, just different criteria to filter against. And then for consultations, this is really the same kind of concept, but it allows, this will give you a list of your current consultations, but you might get an ad hoc consultation from somebody comes up to your desk and wants to discuss something. We don't need to go to an administrator to set up the schedule. You could do it yourself as a facilitator and just click on it, and you have a quick form that will set everything up for you. Just to fill out a couple things. One of the things we originally were going to put was some automation to the calendars, people's Outlook calendars. We took that out just for simplicity and change management at this point. But it will come back down the road. But at this point, it was pulled out just for change management purposes. How did you guys find making that decision? Because I know we put it in there, we took it out, we had those discussions. How did you guys find that work in trying to fit? It was kind of, we were doing it a little agile at that phase, trying to make sure it worked for you. How did you guys find that worked for you guys?
Yeah, I think the dream is still that it'll better connect to our calendaring systems in the future, but for now, I think it's okay. For context, we have I would say maybe about 15 different people or so offering consultations throughout the year, and hit usually well over 400 consultations over the span of a year. So like that, just in terms of scope, there's a large number of consultations and different people who are doing those. And we're reaching like hundreds of people in any year that we're trying to better track. And so this whole system, this database, allows us to see a lot of that right in this app, actually. So this app is connected to the Dataverse. I hope I'm saying this right. This app is connected to the Dataverse, which allows people to put information in, but to also get to see a little bit of data in terms of what they're connected to or registered to facilitate. And that there was a question in the chat that says, that asked if we're using Power BI for reporting. And the answer to that is yes, we will be using Power BI for reporting. That's the project that we're working on next. So it will pull the data from the Dataverse that has gone in through this app for much more detailed reporting. So this app will allow us to see a little bit, but the detailed reporting will be built out through Power BI.
Yeah, and with that, we could talk a little bit about that, some of that, what we're going to do in there. So I know we kind of have like 3-4 main reports that we're kind of focused now, but we've talked, we have a bunch of other ideas as you start to use the data and you'll come through. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about your main reports, maybe the first, I guess there's 4. So a quick snippet of which ones, what they are and how long they normally take you to generate.
We can probably also put a link in the chat as well, just to our reporting page in terms of what we've been reporting, so you can see the kinds of things that we are reporting on. Steve, are you able to do that? Maybe find the link to our reports page. But so far, for us to develop the reports that we've been posting on our website has been a lot of manual labor, and that we do an annual, what we call a year in review report publicly on our website to share the kinds of work that we've been doing over the past year. Part of that is connected to reporting on what we call a reach metric. So what proportion of our faculty members at McMaster have we reached? And then internally, we also have some reports that we use that aren't posted on our website, but that help to inform some of the decisions we make around our programming. That hasn't been something that we've been able to do very much of, though, because most of our attention has gone to the kind of manual getting public reports out. And so I'm really excited about the additional reports we'll be able to get from Power BI that will help to inform our decision making internally around the types of programming we'll be offering in the future.
Yeah, and some of the kind of things we talked about if to do in the future, outside of the scope of doing the current reports, is like analytics or prediction of what types of activities or programs are actually working. Try to figure out trends, see if there's stuff falling off, people are not interested, so you could build better programs or more programs that people are more interested in, right? Because I know that you've mentioned in the past is to bring stuff that people want that will help them bring educational experiences to others, such as AI, for example.
Yeah. There's not very much time left, people. 5 minutes. Hit us with some questions, maybe, if you've got any.
I can't post the link in the chat. It looks like the chat's disabled for me, so I just posted it as a Q&A, so I don't know if someone can just throw that in the chat for me.
Oh, I see it in the Q&A. Maybe others can too. Chat is disabled for you. Let me try.
Here, I put it in. I copied it in there for you guys.
All right, so there's some comments. Does the system offer dashboards once reporting through Power BI? So yeah, we'll have dashboards in Power BI. That's the plan for that one. The app is quite interesting. Seems like a lot of requirements gathering. Yes, Gurbinder, you are right. And so I think Creospark was actually really, really helpful in helping us to determine what all of those requirements were. And there was a lot of upfront conversation, which I think led to success of the first project and the ongoing success that we have going on right now with the second, which is that reporting part of it as well. We've learned lots through this process. It's been great. And it's been our first experience at the MacPherson Institute specifically, certainly not at McMaster broadly, but our first experience at the MacPherson Institute in working with a Microsoft partner and like I guess a vendor or company like Creospark. There was a little bit of, I don't know, differences in the way in which we work at the university in terms of our scheduling and the way in which Creospark works with some of their project management and agile and that sort of thing. But I think early on had lots of conversations around how we could blend our two cultures of work together to make something work for both of us, right? Because we're very different organizations and so it was really great to have a lot of those conversations up front and be able to work out some processes really and how the Creospark and the MacPherson Institute could work well together.
Yeah,
so I'm very grateful for that.
I think that was a key to that at first, because I know your schedules fill up very fast.
It's crazy. Yeah.
Schedules fill out fast too. So trying to, and you guys, because your schedules are very busy, we're trying to do a little bit more agile, get feedback. So one of the things we kind of worked out was, pre-book the meeting, and we could cancel it if we're not gonna use it. That way, Lori and team's schedules were booked, so they know they had time there, and anything that we needed them to have for homework or questions that we needed answered for the next meeting, provide enough time for them to do it.
I think that was a big learning because we haven't worked in your project management style before. So we didn't want to be the ones that were causing delays in the project. And so really trying to work out how we could block time in our calendars to be able to respond and deliver on types of questions that would come and needed quick turnaround times. And so it was really great to try to work through some of those processes early on and that. Yeah, there's a question in the chat. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, and for us, we're always trying to adjust to help with our clients, right? Because we know everybody works differently, right? Yeah. So our goal is to make it as easy as for you guys, but also to achieve your goals, right? So we got to adjust. We have a process that works, but we know we might have to be agile in our process to work with you guys.
Yeah. End user training. So right now, user training is for our own staff at the MacPherson Institute to be able to use the app itself. I know we're really close to the end of time, but we do have hopes for expanding that so that faculty and staff at McMaster broadly will be able to use some kind of a portal to be able to access their own information. The LMS that we use at McMaster is based on D2L Brightspace. So that's the learning management system that we have, and a large number of our participants take programming through the LMS. And our faculty broadly use the Brightspace LMS. So right now what we're doing is we're pulling information from that and being able to upload it into the app. So yeah.
Yeah. But future goals.
Yeah, future goals, it's going to integrate, right? Yeah.
Right? It's more but the first phase, this is kind of think about the first phase, must-haves was get somewhere to start storing the data in a consistent format. Future is to do more automation and integration, which is, ideal world, right? But, you can't build, Rome in a day, right? So, so our goal was to try to help you guys get to that first step, right? To solve your major problem. That's great. It looks like we're on time. I personally want to thank Lori and Steve for taking the time to chat with us today. It's been great. And if anybody else has any other questions, thank you. Feel free to ask, put them into the chat, and we will get back to you guys.
Thanks, everyone. I'm thrilled that you joined us and happy to answer any follow-up questions via email or any kind of way if you want to continue to chat. I am available.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.